Alright, welcome to the Friant Kern Canal how-to. This is how to do a valve change on the Friant Kern Canal. And usually how these things start, this phone will ring at the dam, and a man named Sam will be calling you, and he will be like, hey, my farmers or my customers have paid for more water to be sent down the canal, and that means that you guys need to put more water in the canal. And I want it to be this much. So my example today, Sam has called and demanded 1,300 more CFS into the Friant Kern Canal. So step one is we're going to write that down because I don't want to embarrass myself by having to call him and be like, what did we talk about? So increase 1,300 on the Friant Kern Canal from 516 to... what is that, 1816? Let's just call it 1800 for this example and say that was 500 because this will make our lives easier, I promise. And say it's going to happen at 10 a.m. As you can see, I've had an example already and I screwed it up. So, attempt number 2. So we're going to increase 1,300 going to, what did I say, 1,800? 1,800 is the total we want then. So what we need a total CFS of 1,800. And we need to figure out how much of that's the power plant and how much of that needs to go on our big valves. Step 1, figure out the current elevation of the lake. Go on to CDEC. If you don't know what CDEC is, you probably shouldn't be doing this. Go on to CDEC, type in MIL on the query real-time data, and take the either projected or most recent value for the lake elevation. Happens to be 502 today. Tailwater is our next step because we need to know the difference between the tailwater of the Friant Kern Canal and the elevation of the lake to get the net head. The net head is important because the larger the net head is, the more pressure there is pushing on the valves that release into the Friant Kern Canal. How we get net head, or how we get tailwater, is in the Friant Kern Canal rating table binder. It's the very first page right here. Don't go any further into it. You need to find the total order number on the left. We have CFS, and we're going to look for the total, which is 1,800. 1,800 is somewhere in here. It's right there. And our tailwater for 1,800 is 462.3. 462.3. Okay. Now we subtract them. Let's see if I could do a little bit of math without embarrassing myself. This is 10 that we turn into a 9 because I did this backwards. Let's see that. Oh no, I took away. Forgive me. 502. I know this isn't an inspiring start to this video. 502.0. We had to borrow from this, right? Because I made that a 10. I don't have a calculator on because I'm using my phone to film this. So, so this is a 1. That's a 7. We're on track. Can't take from a 0, so we got to take from a 5 and make this a 10. And we need to take from the 10 now and make that a 9. I was on to something. I just lost track of what I was doing. So that's a 1, and now we've given this 10 more. So now that's an 11. So we got 9, 3, so 39.7. Let's see, 40 plus that would be 502. 39 point, yes, I did it right. Okay, net head, 39.7. This is important because that is how we get 39.7. So you're gonna look at the top of every page in this book has a net head value, and you're gonna look for your net head value, which is 39.7, so we're actually going to round it to 40 because it's whole numbers. And now is our time, because we're going to look at this chart and be like, well, what does any of this mean? And the only reason you don't know what this means is because you haven't called Joe. Joe is the man from Friant Power Authority who you're going to call up and be like, hey, Sam says we need 1,300 more in the Friant Kern. That's going to put 1,800 in the Friant Kern Canal. How much megawatts do you want to run at 1,800? And he'll be like, 2. Okay, so 2 point what, Joe? 2.0. Okay. 2.0 is how many megawatts Joe wants to run. Let's see. We're going to look at nethead 40, okay? And we're going to find 2.0. The way you'd read this if you had 2.3, it would be 2.0123. You see that? It would be 1,000. But we have 2.0, so it's 890. That's how we get how much the power plant is producing. 890 CFS through the power plant, because at a megawatt setting of 2.0 and a net head pressure 39.7 feet of net head spits out 890. Okay, now we know that the remainder needs to go on F3 and F4, and that's 1,800 minus 800 minus 90, so that would be 910. Math. Zeros, 18. Bam. Adds up. 910. So now what do we do with that 910? We need to do more math. We need to calculate the velocity, VT, of the water getting spit out, F3 and F4. We're going to need a calculated area of the, if this is the valve and it's open 3%, and this is how much of it is open, you need to calculate the area of that, like how many square feet is this open. And then, let's see, CFS. Okay. Next step. We're done with this book. We've used it. Throw it away. Now we need the big black book, where you will see tabs after this first tab. Okay. San Joaquin River. We're not using that. Friant Kern Canal. Okay, we're on to something. I see a table with lots of numbers. We need to go past that. How far past that? Until you see F3 and F4 theoretical velocity for elevations that are possible. Okay. If you go past that, you will see things like F1 and F2. That doesn't make any sense. Also F1, F2. What the hell is 100%? Oh, that's not it. Yeah, you went too far. That's why. F3, F4. Find the elevation of the lake. We already know that. Forget all this mumbo jumbo above it. It's 502.0. 500. Okay, elevation 500.0. Look, I'm looking at these numbers. 500.012. We're going to use this box and this little box friend next to them, okay? Values are 0.64 and 49.44. I'm going to forget that. Here's our equation we're using, though. To get the velocity, you need to take CFS and you could do that, but we're going to do it the other way. To get the calculated area, sorry about that, you need to, it's a correct equation, I was just doing it backwards. You need to take the CFS and divide it by the VT. And right now we have CFS. We know we need 910, so we have this value. We don't know the VT yet, and we don't know CA. So we have an equation where we're missing two variables, and that's no good. So we need to use another equation to get one of these variables figured out. and that variable is going to be the VT. So we're going to calculate VT with its own equation, which you will take the decimal. I don't know how this equation was made. Please don't ask me. You'll take the tenths place, or the whatever's left over after the decimal, of the current elevation of the lake. So if it was 502.36, you would put 0.36 right here. But we have 502.0, so I'm going to put 0. And you'll multiply that, 0 times what I know, I'm doing it so you guys know, times, and yes, you're right, I did forget. 502, okay, 0.64. We'll take the little box number, 0.64, and we'll multiply it by the anything after the decimal and the elevation, and then we will add the big number, 502, 49.44, big box number, 49.44. Okay. This is easy for me because 0 times anything is 0, plus 49.44, bam. We've got our VT. It's 49.44. Okay, and we have CFS. Let's use this equation now. So we have to take this and divide it by this. So let's write our equation below. CA is equal to 910 CFS divided by, bam, our VT, because we're using this equation, which is 49.44, and that's going to spit out let's see, 910 divided by 49.44, 18.406. And we do go to the thousandths. 18.406 is our CA. Now we're going to take the CA value. Let's write down our VT while we're at it. 49.44. CA of 18.406. This is where you have to use your brain. How many valves are we running? Are we running just F3? Are we running just F4? Or are we running both? This is important because if we're running both, we got to divide this number by 2 because this is the total calculated area amongst any valve letting any water into the canal. If we had 100 tiny valves, there would still, and all of them were open at 4% or whatever percent, the same percent. Altogether, all of them added up would have the same calculated area as one valve open a whole bunch. So I'm going to say that we're running, I'll do an example of one and I'll do an example of both. So we're going to start with, we're running one valve, just F3, for example. I'm going to look for this whole number then, because I don't have to divide it by anything because this is the entire, all of the calculated area is being run on one valve, 18.406. Now I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to find my calculated area, which is not here. So the middle of this chart is all CA values, and this is all percentages that the valve should be open. So one valve with a calculated area of 18.406, oh, that's very close to this. I'm going to run that one. 18.403 is, this corresponds to the percentage 47.0. If it was this one, it would be, if it was this one, it would be 47.1, and so on and so forth. But 47.0 is our closest value. So if I want to run just F3 or just F4, the valve percentage that it needs to be at will be 47.0, right? Now let's say I'm running both of them, because we always prefer to run 2 valves because the pressure is less, right, on each one. So now I need to divide this by 2, because I'm taking this calculated area and I'm splitting it amongst 2 valves. That's going to be 9.28, I think. No, I think it's 208. But anyway, I'm close enough. I tried to do it. 18.406 divided by 2. 203. Ha! I was multiplying. Okay. 9.203 per valve. And we'll look now for 9.203 in the middle. 9.2. The closest thing I'm seeing to 203 is probably this one. Let's see. 17 is 26. And that is, yeah, 203 is closest to this one. So 9.203 is closest to 9.214 out of all of these. So this corresponds to the percentage 23.1. You see that? 23.0.1.1. 23.1. And that is if we're running 2 valves. 2 valves percentage is equal, I've forgotten. I think it was 23. 9.2, 20, oh, 23.1. 23.1, and that's per valve. This is important stuff. Those are your answers. What we just did, recap. Sam called us. He said, we need this much in the canal. We looked up the elevation. We took the total order in the book, found out what the tailwater would be, found out what the net head would be because it's the difference. Went over here and was like, how much do we have in the power plant? Oh, we got to call Joe. Joe said we're at 2.0. Looked in the book, said that's 890. The rest is on our valves, that's 910. We used this equation at first, but then we realized, oh, we're missing 2 variables, so we have to use this equation first to get the velocity, and we plug it into this equation, and we plug this value into this for CFS here. Looks like this. Get our calculated area. This is for if we were running just 1 valve, and this is if we were running 2. And here we have it. If we were running 1 valve, we would set it to 47%, and if we were running 2, we would set each of them to 23.1%. Good job.